I had an odd experience yesterday. I get this phone call, and the person, whether they were or not, I don't know, claimed to be from the CDC, the Center of Disease Control, and they had this survey they wanted me to do. And, you know, as soon as they said who they were, I started laughing. And I just said, I don't trust you, and I hung up on them. You know, we went through this extremely difficult period of the pandemic. And in my humble opinion, the CDC failed us greatly. You know, we heard the phrase follow the science so often, but really it was follow the politics, follow the money. They really failed horribly. And this Fauci character, he already knew that when it started to happen, that the Wuhan laboratory was being funded by the United States. You know, he was fully aware of it, and that type of virus. And he, you know, when questioned in Congress, he said, well, they decided not to consider that a possibility. That was his big answer, like, yeah, that's exactly what you did. You didn't follow the science, you just, you know, you look for something politically expedient. You know, the CDC, too, pretty common knowledge now that they over-reported the deaths. You know, if someone died of something, you know, basically, I think they had an actual case that someone cited. Someone was hit by a bus. Well, they tested everyone that died for COVID, and if they had COVID, they marked that as a death by COVID, and it's like, well, no, it was the bus. It was the bus that ran over him that killed him. And now I just got this other, you know, I haven't researched it that much, but I don't know, but I know other people have said this, but this little email I got said 277,000 deaths of people were that had been vaccinated kind of didn't get counted as deaths that were vaccinated. They kind of got counted as regular deaths of people that weren't vaccinated. You know, and we had all this data. We're going through the midst of this, and they've accumulated all this data, and there were world-class epidemiologists, so they're the people that really, you know, study this, you know, doctorates, research people, and the CDC didn't want to give them the information because they might misinterpret it. And it's like, gee, you got a world-class expert, and you're worried about showing him your information? That tells me there's something wrong with the way you looked at the information. And then the third leg of, I think, the betrayal came from, you know, different sources, but they certainly backed it, was this idea that you couldn't use certain drugs. You couldn't try them because a president who they didn't like, those words came out of his mouth, like, and it was like, oh my God, you know, here in Maine, our governor was going to pull anyone's right to practice medicine, their license in Maine, if they prescribed, you know, X, Y, or Z. And it's like, gee, you know, during the, you know, he made clear of this right to try law, and that still didn't help. You know, if you're probably not old enough to, you might not be old enough to remember the specter of AIDS when it was really running rampant and everybody was dying. And they did this law that's still in effect now, I believe, but you could get drugs from other countries shipped in and use them legally, because even if they didn't have any backing scientifically, as far as, you know, our FDA was concerned, they figured, well, you know, you're in a serious health crisis, you may die anyway, so why is it going to hurt you to try something? But we couldn't do that with COVID-19. Oh no, you know, it's so bizarre. But yeah, it's really bad that, you know, the people who kept harping about following the science were never following the science. They were following politics. They were following the idea of seeing how much they could control people, how much power they could assume, amass during this. And so now, the big thing is, everybody, the CDC and everybody's saying, "Oh no, it's coming back. It might be worse. We got to all start wearing masks." Blah blah blah. And it's like, no one's going to do it, because it's like you totally lost confidence in that and in them. So it's kind of like, the chicken who cried the sky is falling. He kept saying it so that, or cried wolf, sorry. Well, it's probably both of those children stories, but you give unreliable warnings or taint your warnings with politics, and eventually people are going to just ignore them. Now, you might actually now be doing your real job, but no one's going to care. No one's going to listen to you. And I personally, the CDC has a long way to go before I think the American public trusts them again, because there's a huge number of people who don't. And the World Health Organization, similarly, this all happened under the watch of a guy who wasn't WHO was always run by a doctor, and they didn't have a doctor during this period. And it seemed pretty obvious that they knew where the virus came from. China was kind of sheltered from investigation for like at least 3 months, or longer. But in that initial period where we could have gotten something going and really understand this virus, I mean, we could just, if we had their lab notes, would have helped. The pandemic could have turned out completely different. So yeah, China hit it for a few months, then WHO hit it for an additional number of months, and here you got to be almost like 2 years later before someone says, "Oh yeah, that we found out just recently that the virus could have been accidentally released from this laboratory." And it's like, oh, 2 years late. I mean, people were saying that in the first month of the virus hitting the U.S. People were saying, "Oh no, look at this. This has got to be where it's from." And no, I mean, China really took a beating in the world view of them, and a lot of places just stopped buying things from them. It's kind of hard when everything's made in China sometimes, but you had people just, saying, "Let's find somewhere else to buy our goods." And places like Vietnam have taken up the slack in a lot of things. And my goodness, we couldn't get news of, news that is covered up kind of. And, it's a communist country. They're not going to have any kind of free press or, free dissemination of information. But one interesting study was someone was able to track the number of funeral urns. In other words, I guess it's maybe common in that area. I don't know all of China, but you turn people to ashes, you put them in a vase, a urn. Well, the number of urns shipping to the Wuhan province went up, skyrocketed. And it was like, either they were buying them for the entire country of China, or suddenly something was happening in that area, and people were dying really quickly and a lot. And I think it was that. China never and will never admit how many people actually died there. One of their top guys that was starting to say, "Oh, wait a second. Well, he disappeared in the night. No one ever saw him again." So, I don't know. It's just so sad that basically we were betrayed by WHO, but by our own organization, Center for Disease Control. They just betrayed the public trust, and uh, I don't know. I don't know if it could be reorganized somehow so that couldn't happen again, but it's just really, really, really sad that, you know, we really, really needed them, and they were basically out to lunch with a politician, and it's just bad. I mean, now they're saying, you know, and I don't know how much of the numbers have been inflated, underreported, overreported, whatever, but the number supposedly 1,200,000 Americans died, and it's just kind of a mockery of them for people now just to come out and say, oh yeah, you know that thing those people said, you know, 2 years ago, or, you know, X number of years ago. Oh, we know it's true now. Like, I don't know. It's just bad. What can I say? The FDA, well, we won't say the FDA as much, but the WHO and the CDC, unreliable organizations not to be trusted.